Hello, my name is Kayla Mathis, and I'm doing my presentation on Junot Diaz. The life of Junot Diaz. Junot Diaz was born on December 31st, 1968, in Santo Domingo, which is in the Dominican Republic. While Diaz, his mother, and siblings lived in the Dominican Republic, his father was working in the United States as a forklift operator. At the age of 6, Diaz, his mother, and his 4 siblings immigrated to the United States and settled in Parlin, New Jersey, which is Middlesex County, where they all reunited with Diaz's father. When he first arrived in America, he did not speak any English, and because of this, he was able to understand how competitive America was and how hard cultural integration was during childhood in his time period. His favorite hobby was reading, especially science fiction. He walked miles and miles just to go to the library. With that being said, he kept his hobby a very discreet secret because he didn't want his peers and his friends to know that that is what he loved to do. In an interview, he once stated that when he read, he spoke English perfectly, so he retreated to books as a way to be masterful in a language that was difficult for him. In the biography section of our novel, our textbook, he also states that it was never not one time where he read an adult book where he didn't have to pick up a dictionary. And this goes back to him, loving reading. In due course, Diaz became a naturalized citizen. He also stated in another interview, from an immigrant family, you don't leave all that behind to be lazy. I was a hard-working college student. With that being said, while Diaz was in college, some of the jobs he worked delivering pool tables and working in steel mills. He also stated he was always a hard worker. He stated in an interview, as soon as we could carry something from as soon as we could lie to someone about our age, we all had jobs. He said the need to honor your parents' sacrifices for coming out to a strange country is what drives him to work hard. He graduated from Rutgers University with a bachelor's degree in literature and history in 1992. He retrieved his master's in fine arts degree from Cornell University in creative writing in 1995. Diaz was 26 years old when he published the work Drown. He has taught creative writing at Massachusetts Institute of Technology since 2002. He is also the co-founder of The Voice of Our Nation, which is a workshop for writers of color. It was stated that the Voices of Our Nation Arts Foundation is the only multi-genre workshop for writers of color in the nation. It brings writers of color from the margins to a community where their work is centralized and honored. He was also named the MacArthur Fellow in 2012. His artistic interests are very interesting, and they vary quite a lot. There are authors of color that encouraged and influenced him through their writing. These people include Samuel R. Delaney, Toni Morrison, Los Bros Hernandez, Ray Bradbury, and many more. These people influenced him to discover how he could have science fiction and his heritage in his writing. He had a friend whom he called Athena in his article, MFA versus POC. She was a phenomenal writer, and she really encouraged and impacted Diaz's writing. However, when they were in the program at Cornell University together, she decided to drop out because she felt that the program was quote-unquote too white, just as Diaz did. However, all colored people in their program felt that the program was too white. It was only 2 that decided they were going to drop out within a 2-year period. In Diaz's article, MFA versus POC, he states, "Too white, as in Cornell, had almost no POC, no people of color in it. Too white, as in the MFA, had no faculty of color in the fiction program, like none. And neither the faculty nor the administration saw that the lack of color as a big problem. At least the students are diverse, they told us. Too white, as in my workshop, reproduced exactly the dominant culture's blind spots and assumptions around race and racism, and sexism and heteronormal activity, and etc. In my workshop, there was almost a lunatic belief that race was no longer a major social force. It's class. In my workshop, we never explored our racial identities or how they impacted our writing at all. Never got any kind of instruction in that area at all. Crap. In my workshop, we never talked about race except on the rare occasion that someone wanted to argue that race discussions were exactly the discussion a serious writer should not be having. Athena also played a major role in the making of the voices of our nation. An artistic interest that Junot Diaz also was very fond of was sexuality, love, intimacy, passion, etc. In some of his works, he explicitly describes some of his characters, and it allows him to put his opinions and how he feels and his sexual desires and etc. into his writing. He also, one of the biggest important parts in his artistic interest is combining his heritage and his life in his writing. For instance, when Diaz attended Rutgers University, he stayed in the dorms, Demarest, I guess, and that is where the characters Junior and Oscar lived. Also, with him incorporating Spanish and English into some of his writings, it allows his readers to understand that he shares two heritages. He has the Dominican Republic part of him, and he has the American part of him that he had to learn, but it then became a part of his everyday life. And I'm sure that he appreciates, both of his heritages. He combines it in his writing all the time. Moving on to his works of art. Moving on to his body of works. The novels that he has written is The Brief, Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. It was his best-selling in his first novel. It won many prizes. In 2007, it won the Anisfield Wolf Book Award. It also won the National Book Critics Circle Award. And in 2008, it won the John Sargent Sr. First Novel Prize in Fiction, and it also won the Pulitzer Prize in Fiction in 2008. The articles and excerpts that he had written, Love and Ray Bradbury, which was published in 2012, MFA versus POC, which was published in 2014. Mind you, this was the article that I referred to earlier in his artistic interest, and that got a lot of attention. Another article and or excerpt that he has written is Monstro, and it was published in 2012. The short stories and or collections that Diaz has written and published is Miss Laura, which was published in 2012, and Drown, the one that we are familiar with, was published in 1996. He also published a short story and or collection, This Is How You Lose Her. This is a story where the artistic interest with the love and the passion also came into play a lot. I saw many quotes that explained and went in depth on the theme of love and sexuality and passion and that sort of thing. The essays that he has written are The Money, which was published in 2011, The Pure Principle, which was published in 2010, and The 1 Year Storyteller in Chief, which was published in 2010. Also, I would like to go back to the first novel that he written, The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, which was published in 2007. In that novel, he described the lives of immigrant family as they experienced poverty and the persecution in the Dominican Republic under the dictatorship of Raphael. In this novel and in his short stories, Diaz interweaves techniques of magic realism. with references to North American popular culture. Mind you, this is going back to his life and his heritage and his culture. He also mixes Spanish and English in a combination of often called Spanglish. I've also talked about Spanglish and how he incorporated the American side of him with the Dominican Republic side of him. That was all I have, and thank you for your time.